Hello, my friends. We are back at the chalkboard with the circle. If you don't know about the circle, stick around and you'll find out about the circle. You'll find out about standing in the center of the circle and allowing all things to take their course and what happens when we don't. Right? What's the name of this video? What are the cycles of suffering and how do we escape them? Right? A little bit about the circle. The controllers don't want you to know there is even a center to the circle. They don't want you to know about being the observer and stopping your cycles of thought. They need us trapped in the illusion, in the cycles of thought, through our attachments of our thinking mind, our ego, in order to control and manipulate us and to feed off of us in lower states. So the controllers need to keep upping the game of the illusion, the stimulation, aggravation, information in the illusion of chaos, fear, and confusion, right? Which does what? It creates and inflates the ego, which perpetuates the cycles of thoughts, which has us thinking we're somebody doing something, has us thinking we're in control. All suffering assumes control, right? This is the cycles of suffering. They're different attachments we get caught in because we think we're stuck in the thinking mind. We think we're somebody doing something. We think we're in control. We're creating separation from the whole, which is not thinking, which is the observer. We're creating separation through the thinking mind, which is stimulated thinking mind, which puts us in lower limiting perspectives, right? This is how they control us, because when we're caught in the illusion through this separation, right, which is also suffering. Suffering assumes control, and is also because we are separate from the whole. So in these lower limiting perspectives, we have no true common sense, right? And this allows us to be manipulated and controlled. Because to have true common sense, you have to stand in the center of the circle and know that you don't know. If you think you know, when we think we're somebody doing something, we think we know. This keeps us in lower limiting perspectives. We can only see from those perspectives. And you can't think you know about anything, because as soon as you think you know, you're trapped, because you're creating a lower limiting perspective. If we stand in the center of the circle and allow all things to take their course, we don't attach ourselves to anything. We're detached. We're coming back to the whole, and thus there goes the suffering. So the cycles of suffering, what is the cycles of suffering? It's these attachments we get caught in because we're stuck in a stimulated thinking mind. And we think we're somebody, and we think we're in control. We're identifying with the actor. We're identifying with the doer. We think we're the decision maker. But remember, there is no control. Control only exists in the thinking mind. What happens, my friends, my beautiful friends who are with me on this journey, who are with me in this reminder, yet another reminder, because the illusion is very powerful. We need to keep reminding ourselves. Where was I going with this? Standing in the center of the circle is very important, right? The cycles of suffering, but they are perpetuated through the sea of stimulation, perpetuates the cycles of thoughts, which has us caught in these cycles of suffering. And we keep going round and round and round because we keep thinking we're somebody doing something. So how do we escape the cycles of suffering? We remove the aggravators. We remove the stimulation and information, right? We stay present. It always comes back to presence and purification. What happens when our chemistry is all jacked up because we're stuck in the toxic food program and we've been programmed to destroy ourselves, to self-destruct, and they've created a self-limiting population through this program. Well, we take in new conditioning, which shows us how to correct our chemistry, and we start correcting our chemistry, and we realize to reach higher levels of purification, we need more presence, right? We need to be present more, which gives us enough balance to reach higher levels of purification, right? And how do we get more presence? Through purification. To reach higher levels of presence, we need purification. Purification for presence, presence for purity. They work together, right? We need them to do them both, because purification calms the body and the mind, which allows you to get more present. The more present we are, and the more we stop taking in information and stimulation, the more we empty and reconstitute the mind, this creates space for the divine to work through us. And this gives us the space for a deeper understanding. This is how we escape the cycles of suffering. Presence and purification, purification and presence. Stop thinking and end all of your problems. Thinking is the cause of all suffering. Stop thinking and end all of your problems. This is how you escape the cycles of suffering. These attachments we get caught in because we get caught in these expectations and these outcomes because we think we're in control. We get all worked up. We get stressed or anxious about things that are happening because we think we're in control. We think other people are in control. Because if we were in the center of the circle and we were observing, we wouldn't be attached to any of that. We'd realize that we're all just nature running off. When you stop thinking long enough, you're giving up control. That is surrender. The highest devotion to God is surrender, giving up the illusion of control, giving up your attachment, your identification to your somebodyness, your ego through the thinking mind. You think you're somebody doing something. You think you're in control. All suffering assumes control and creates the separation from the whole, from the one. When we stop thinking, every moment we're in the present moment, every second we're in the present moment, we're dissolving the ego. We're dissolving the attachment to the ego. We're dissolving the attachment, the identification with the thinking mind, which creates separation. We're coming back to the whole in the present moment. Right? This absolves all of our suffering. We're no longer stuck in the past or the future. What's going to happen if I do this? Why did I do this? You could only ever act based off your chemistry and your conditioning, which you are not in control of if you're not thinking, right? When we stop thinking and observe nature running off, and we realize everyone else's nature running off, you don't hold things against people. You stop judging people because judgment assumes control. You assume someone could have done something differently. You don't realize through being the observer that they're just nature running off. And you can only ever make one decision. And whatever you do was always going to happen. So you're saying, in a sense, it doesn't really matter. Yes, because we're not doing anything anyway. We're the observer. No matter what you do was always going to happen because there's only divine timing. There was never going to be anything different that ever happened because we're just unfold. We're just the cosmic unfolding, I like to call it, right? We're just observing the game. The game's already over, right? In a sense, and in another sense, the only game in town is to do nothing. There's nothing to do but to do nothing. Stop thinking. Give it all up. That's it. And purification, because that works with it. But that's just part of, you can observe that too. You can observe the waves of balance. Your being trying to balance itself. Remember, bad habits aren't really bad. They're just things we do to cope with being out of balance. How do we balance ourselves? Presence and purification. Correct all imbalances. And this is how we escape the cycles of suffering, as we keep raising our vibration and bringing in more balance, and we bring in more of the union, the higher self, the divine, God working through us, through the eternal present moment of God's love. We keep surrendering at every moment, which is the highest devotion to God. Presence and purification are the two highest devotions to God, because we are God and we're taking care of this vessel, right? Presence and purification is a life and devotion to God, no matter what you're doing. As long as you are giving it all up, you're present. You're just observing whatever your being's doing. Sweeping a floor, doing the dishes, at a job you may not, resonate with, you may not like, or whatever. You got to give it all up and just stay present. If you can get to the point at a job you don't like, right, where you're just staying present, and you realize a lot of the stuff that used to bother you stop bothering you, and eventually you will vibrate out of that job into jobs that serve your current state of the evolution of your consciousness more correctly. And again, you're just observing it all anyway, no matter what happens. Like I often talk about emptying, reconstituting the mind. right? Which is necessary to gain a deeper understanding. This is so important because gaining deeper understandings allows us to stay in a state of surrender presence longer and more, which just keeps bringing in the divine and God working through us and our higher self. And we just keep doing it. You know what I mean? I wanted to make a video about the cycles of suffering because I mention them often in my videos. I've made many previous videos about them and about how we escape it. Escaping the illusion, escaping the cycles of suffering, all kind of the same thing. It always comes back to the center of the circle. Stand in the center of the circle and allow all things to take their course. Be the observer, detach. Stop identifying with the thinking mind, with the ego, the somebodyness, the actor. Give up control. Can you give up control? The thing keeping us caught in the cycles of suffering and causing separation. Can you give it up by stop thinking? Can you do that long enough to become the observer and observe nature running off? And poof, there it all goes in the present moment. When we're present, we're giving up control. All those attachments and all the stories that keep holding us up, they kind of go away because we realize we're just the observer, and whatever's happening, whatever video this being is making, or whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm saying, you can observe it all. You can observe yourself in an argument, which I've done. Observe myself, my nature running off as it is, right? And there's no need to judge that. Judge where you're at. If you observe, if you're acting anger, you're acting in anger, or you're acting in ways that you don't like, right? Or you have bad habits or things we do to cope with being out of balance. Just keep observing it all and realize this is your chemistry and conditioning. And the more we do that, the more we're present, the more this is going to bring us back into balance, and this will allow us to do things like higher levels of purification, getting up to higher levels of raw foods, fruits and vegetables, getting up to all raw fruits, and then we can do raw fruits with no fats, which is a very nice level. If we can balance enough to get on it, or we can do juices. Some people do water fast, but you really don't got to do anything crazy. If you can just balance yourself enough to get on raw fruits and vegetables even, that is very beneficial in purification. But if you want to keep going, because remember, the only thing to do is presence and purification. So we just keep purifying the vessels as much as we can, we're balanced to do. And this see a stimulation, aggravation, and information can take some serious balance in order to keep purifying the vessel, because there is so much stimulation, aggravation, and information that's constantly sneaking in to zap you, to jumpstart the cycles of thought. That's all it's trying to do, is jumpstart your cycles of thought so they can keep you in this separation. Right? They're trying to separate you from the whole, which is the present moment. The controllers are trying to keep us in separation. No, don't stop thinking. No. News, social media, XY, movies, TV. Keep you stuck in this, trapped in this lower limiting perspective, right? Which is going to keep you in the cycles of suffering because you're attached. You have biases, you have attachments. You think you're in control. You think you made a decision in the past. Why did I do that? I should have done this. People get stuck for crazy amounts of time, years, decades, dwelling on the past. Oh, man, if I had just done that, I messed up my entire life. You did no such thing. You did the only thing you could have possibly done. Whatever you did in the past, you could not have ever made a different decision, because you are just acting based off your chemistry and your conditioning and your consciousness. You are simply nature running off. You just identifying with the doer through the thinking mind. I'm in control, buddy. One of my favorite comments I've ever got. I'm in control, buddy. We think we're in control, right? We think, keyword think, we're in control. What happens when we stop thinking long enough? Can you do it? Can you give up enough of stimulation, facilitate enough peace, purify enough to keep giving it up enough to become the observer to see nature running off. That's the name of the game. Just keep giving it up, my friends. That's how we escape the cycles of suffering. That's how we come back to the center of the circle, stand in the center of the circle, and allow all things to take their course. Bada bing, bada boom. No matter what the issue is, keep coming back to present. Keep giving it up. Say, oh, I'm getting sucked in. Oh, why am I stressed? Getting sucked into the game, thinking I'm somebody doing something, thinking I'm in control. Got to work on the stimulation, right? And we're just observing it all anyway. We're not actually doing anything. This is just conditioning, reminding us, right? Chemistry and conditioning and consciousness, right? And we watch the whole game unfold. So I'm speaking at many different levels. Thank you for joining me, my beautiful friends. Me and the chalkboard and the circle. The great circle. Such a simple shape, but such a profound representation of consciousness. And when Lao Tzu says this in the Tao Te Ching, stand in the center of the circle and allow all things to take their course. When I first heard it, along with many other things, when I first heard them, I didn't understand. It just passed right through me. Okay. Which is crazy. And then I took a long break from the Tao Te Ching. But as I started to empty the mind and stop taking in information, and I created space in the mind for a deeper understanding, I then was like, bing, the circle. I gained a deeper understanding of how the game works, right? Of what that phrase means. Stand in the center of the circle and allow all things to take their course. Be the observer. They're telling us in pretty simple language, but the level of deeper understanding needed for us to accept what it's saying, right? Because the ego resists its own destruction. The ego is the guard at the gate to the divine. This the ego, the thinking mind, is stopping us from this deeper understanding. Thank you for joining me, my friends. That is 17 and a half minutes. Well, I can keep going forever, my friends. Thank you for joining me. May our cosmic beloved grant you peace, patience, presence, health, abundance, and a deeper understanding. Namaste.